Welcome to the Accounting Profits and Prosperity Show. I am your host, Louis Prosperi. I'm very happy to have here today a very great author and wonderful speaker, Mike Michalowicz. Mike, welcome to the show.
Louis, it's a joy to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. And I'm definitely looking forward to this interview because one of the key topics for professional accounting and bookkeeping firms, because it's, the referral-based system is how we build. But it would be great for us to get a concept of how can they do marketing better? What things can they do also to enhance their referral base, but also just be better marketers?
I think it's appropriate to start off by it's uncomfortable for many people, particularly if that's not your realm of expertise. We weren't trained on marketing. We didn't grow up in it. We didn't work for an agency necessarily. So it's new to a lot of folks and it can be rich of fear. My approach, my suggestion, and to give context, we, through our organization, have served thousands now of accountants and bookkeepers in this exact practice. What we found is start with what you already have. So the first thing is you already have clients. Having a marquee client typically gives you such a reputation of excellence that that's a big deal. So one simple marketing hack is identify who the marquee client would be to have. If I was serving famous person, I could get all these other people famous in their industry.
Right.
Then what you do is you call that person and say, listen, I'm willing to offer some kind of quid pro quo. If you allow me to be your vendor of choice and I provide services, I'll discount it or do it for free even if you're willing for me to point you as a reference and to say that I'm serving you. And I'm asking for integrity. I'm not saying for you to make anything up, but if you think my service is excellent, I love you, spread the word. And sometimes that cost of giving free service, albeit with a marquee client, is transformational. And I'll give you an example. I'm an author. I got a call from a company that does book marketing, and there's lots of companies that help market books. And they said, hey, we work with Tim Ferriss. So would you want to work with us? So Tim Ferriss is such a big name. I'm like, yeah, you got the leg up. Well, I heard through Tim Ferriss that this company did that exact strategy. They said, we'll do your book marketing for free because we want to simply reference that we work with you. So that's a strategy. Another one is going into what I call the vendor well. It's a real simple strategy. You look at your existing client, and what you do is you ask your existing clients, what other vendors are you working with? I'm your bookkeeper. Maybe you have an accountant, or maybe I'm an accountant, you have a bookkeeper, and other things. Then ask your client, would you be willing to refer me to your vendors? And the client may be a little suspicious and go, why? And the response is, well, if I work with those vendors, if I understand who they are, the more intimate understanding I have of what your needs are, the better I can serve you. So they'll make the introductions. Well, that vendor, say that computer guy, is working with more than just one client. They have many clients. Perhaps a collaborative relationship can come out of that. The one thing I avoid and I haven't said yet is asking for referrals. It's a very common strategy, but it's also fraught with risk. Because if I go to an existing client and say, hey, would you introduce me more clients? It triggers dilution, meaning I won't have as much time for you. I'm working with someone else now. So why would that client want to give a referral? Plus also, I'm taking money from this client and saying, I need more than just money. I need you to serve me by giving me new business. So it's a risky proposition. So I wouldn't start with that. I'm not saying referrals are bad. It's very risky. I would first look for marquee clients. Now you know how to do it. I look for that vendor well, the network around you. And those two things don't require any marketing. Ironically, it's the best marketing I found.
So what you're saying is look with what you've got, because there might be nuggets right there sitting in front of you rather than trying to look at brand new, starting something.
No, you're totally right. It's hiding in plain sight. And I think, Louis, a lot of people revert to, everyone does those ads on Instagram now, or I got to start dancing on TikTok to get opportunity. And the reality is, if you're not familiar with it, if you're not comfortable with it, you're going to be awkward. It's not going to work well. And so many bookkeepers and accountants I've worked with say, I tried Facebook ads or I did this. And I said, well, how to plan out? And they're like, horribly, I wasted money. And I'm rarely surprised because it's not their natural terrain. So to get good at marketing, let's work with what you already have. It's hiding in plain sight. It's right in front of you. It's your existing clients. It's the vendor network around you. Let's work with that, and that'll build that marketing muscle. And then maybe after that, it's appropriate to explore these more risky or unfamiliar platforms.
Right. Let's take a look at a little bit about what you're talking about, which is what marketing in plain sight. Let's look at that because I really like that, because one of the things, and you probably know this better than I do, Mike, is that a lot of professionals, they're really good at their job. Like their skill sets are at a high level. They know what they're doing. And like you said, the marketing is not comfortable. They tend to get what we call referrals by osmosis. Once they get to a certain point, people just bring them. So it's not really exercising that muscle that you talked about. So if you can go in a little bit about the referral method, where you focus not on, like you said, what's in it for me, but what's in it for you. What's in it for you. Yeah. If you can give some techniques, because the awkwardness is probably the number one thing that we have.
Totally. And Lou, you nailed it. The second we go into any situation leading with our own selfish interest, it feels awkward, and our clients can sniff it out. So it should be awkward. If I approach you and Louis say, hey, thanks for having me on your show. Hey, could you introduce me to 10 more shows? I'm putting a responsibility on you that's very uncomfortable. And out of social grace, you may say yes, but But subconsciously, or at least in the internal conversation, maybe, gosh, who is this jerk? I just gave him an opportunity to work, to be on my show, and that's not enough for him. So that's why we want to avoid it. There is that negative conversation. But if I instead said, hey, Louis, is there a way I can serve you? Are you looking for other guests? I'm connected with my network. Would that be of service to you? Now I'm empowering you. What this does is it further enhances my network. I can call my friends and say, hey, I can get you on Louis' show. And when I call them, I can say, hey, if you have any shows that may be suited for me, would you want to do that? Well, now there's reciprocity. So I'm gifting, I'm serving you, and also expanding my network. When you actively serve your clients, particularly in unexpected ways, reciprocity is a normal response. So one great marketing technique that we haven't really explored yet is do something extraordinary and unexpected for your client. So here's one technique I used to do in my business, and it's genuine and authentic, but it is also a technique.
Sure.
I would send the client a year-end statement, and then I would actually cross off one of the charges and say, we love doing business with you. This one's on us. And have you ever had a vendor ever do that? Like, no. So my clients would be like, that was unbelievable. I said, listen, the experience with you has been so great. While we did this work, we just wanted to gift it to you. And they said, hey, we appreciate you. And they naturally now we moved to the top of their mind and they started talking about us more. Here's another marketing technique. I asked some of my clients, I like to teach what I'm serving you with. Would you want to come on to a webinar and share kind of your experience? And maybe it's a way to give you exposure to my own community. So some of my clients say, oh yeah, I'm looking for more exposure. Well, great. Let's do a webinar together. I'll tell my audience about it. Maybe you can tell yours if you feel it's appropriate. So now we're both garnering exposure. They're getting value out of it. The key to effective marketing that is not awkward is ask what's in it for them. What's in it for the other guy? How can I be of extraordinary service? Then secondary to that, then you think of, well, is there a way that I can position this so that they win, but I also get pulled up? One final thought comes to me is there's a real simple way to get PR, to get in the newspaper and so forth. And it's not about pitching yourself. It's not saying, I got this great bookkeeping business and we've been in town for 5 years. We'd love to get more business. Can you put this in a newspaper? Sure. Newspapers want human interest stories. But maybe you have a client who, because their books were done on time, that they could leave and their books were solid, they could leave for a trip without any worries about their business for a week. And they visited a family member that was very ill in another country that they've never seen before. Those are what's called human interest stories. And then what you do is you call the newspaper and say, listen, there's a real interesting story of a client I have that was able to travel to Europe to visit a relative they never saw before. It just so happens they would have never been able to do this unless they got their books right. Interesting. Now you're a little hanging chat of the story. You happen to be the bookkeeper, but the likelihood of that story getting picked up is 100 times greater than this company that's selling itself, because there's something interesting that may inspire readers to maybe do the same, or at least intrigue readers, and you're embedded into it. So always think, how does the everyone else win consideration of how I get pulled up in the process?
That's interesting, because the human interest story just triggered in me charities or things that your customer has a desire, like let's say they're MS or cancer or whatever. That might be a great way to connect. So would that be something that you would recommend to bookkeepers and accountants to find out what are their human interest or their charity, their customers' charity?
Absolutely. It's becoming like a marketing machine, man. Yeah, we should start a business. Yeah, that's a great idea. I love how you're riffing off that. That's exactly it. So they have an interest, eradicate cancer, we'll say, is their program they're in, or they're supporting, they're donating to it. We could say, hey, why don't we give some more exposure to this unique aspect of yourself? And now the human interest story is we notify local media and so forth and say, hey, there's this company that no one's heard of that is having an impact on something that's everyone's heard of. Now you're helping get them exposure, and maybe you embed yourself in. And sometimes you're not part of the story, but you ingratiate yourself with that journalist and say, thank you for this great story tip. If you have more, send them my way. And now you're ingratiated, and they may give you a favor one day and kind of try to sneak you in and get you some exposure too. So always try to up-level everyone else.
So Mike, matchmaking, how's that, being a matchmaker with your customers? How does that work? Because matchmaking is exactly combining your customer with you're not necessarily involved in the interaction,
right?
But you're connecting. How does that work? I'm sure you've incorporated that in your...
Yeah. I do that regularly. And the power is you become the authority without having to do any work. I mean, think about when you have a need to repair something in your house. Do you just hit the phone book and start dialing? You may say, oh, I got a friend who just knows everybody. Let me call Sarah, and Sarah's gonna say, oh, I got this plumber who's perfect for you, or whatever. It is more often that we don't blindly seek someone out. We go to trusted resources. That's our natural default. When you become the trusted resource, it empowers you to direct people. So now you can build your network. So if you have a network of complementary vendors and you position yourself with your clients, hey, anytime you have a need, I can't solve it all the time, but I usually have a connection that will serve you, and I can refer qualified, proven candidate to serve you, please reach out to me. Once you they do, and you give the first referral and it works out, now it's like, oh, my, you are a great resource. You start becoming more authoritative. You become that trusted liaison, which means they'll come to you more often, which also often means you can then introduce them to new services that you have and say, listen, I'm also doing so forth. And you have that inherent trust because you already trust it. But also that network of people that you're introducing, they become more dependent and trusting of you. My gosh, you're a great referral source to me. So those people will say, hey, let me help you out. One hand washes the other. So if we actively care for that community surrounding our clients, that community will actively care for us.
I think you hit it right on the nose when you said care. It was another trigger for me. Sorry, Mike, but you're hitting all the trigger points.
I love it. This is a riff session.
Caring about someone else is the critical, right? Because we're all about honestly, let's be honest, right? What's in it for me is where everybody lives.
Yeah.
But what endures people to you is when they feel that you care about them, right?
Correct.
And I think everything we've talked about here, Mike, is a way to show caring. Am I wrong on that, or?
No, totally. You can take, what's in it for me. You can take the word me and flip it to EM, which is M, which in New Jersey, that's how we say them. Like, give it to them. So what's in it for M? What's in it for them? And that's all we have to do is flip that last word and start focusing there. And it triggers reciprocity. It triggers trust and rapport. It triggers all the elements which marketing is supposed to do. We've all heard it's about know, like, and trust. Know is awareness. Like and trust comes through what's called a transfer of trust, where someone already trusts you says, this is my guy. When you've ever heard that, when someone's like, this is the guy or this is the gal, we don't go through much more qualifications. You're not looking at their resume. You're not seeing if they're certified. That's called a transfer of trust. So the know, like, and trust automatically builds when you're actively caring for M, for them.
You know what's interesting is technically accountants and bookkeepers are already in that category, because if you're doing someone's books or
the intimacy, right?
The trust factor. You know how you're more trusted than other parts of people in their family when you're dealing with their financial future, right? It's a very sensitive topic. So the trust is already there. So when someone says to them, he's my guy when it comes to accountants, that's a big
it's a big deal. And I would even emphasize, when we engage a new client, I would remind them occasionally saying, I just appreciate how much you trust me. Your finances is the core of your business, and you've given me the trust to support you. I respect that and honor that, the highest degree of integrity. This is the most important mission for me. And just by reminding them of that, what you're doing is you're instilling, yes, this is my most trusted source. Therefore, always go to your trusted source. So you're actually fostering the relationship through a reminder. Sometimes it's natural. As we serve a customer and they have all their other requirements in their life going on, they think less and less, not of us, but about us. They think less about us because 1%, if even, of their thoughts that go on in any given day or month. So if you simply say, I am so appreciative of how much you trust and value me, and I take this with the highest degree of responsibility. Thank you. You will reinstitute how important you are to them.
So let's reemphasize, because I want to make sure everybody understands. It has to be authentic, number one, right? If it's not authentic, don't do it, because people know when you're not authentic.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't like people, don't be in our business, basically, at the end of the day, right? To be quite honest, right? The other one that I'm a value pricer, Mike, and I'm always about value and how we price. So when we talk about these marketing tools, if I'm understanding correctly, price sensitivity diminishes, correct? Your competition issues diminish. So you probably have more what we call premium capability in pricing. Am I wrong on that?
No, you're 100% right. There is a direct correlation between price and trust. And as trust goes down, the only way to offset someone we don't trust is reducing the price. So if I say, I can do your accounting, you're like, I don't think this guy knows anything about accounting. And I'm like, I don't charge anything for it. That's the only way. It's a race to the bottom to say, is it worth the risk? So I'm mitigating your risk because you have a lack of trust. Conversely, if I said, and you believe, I know accounting inside and out, I know your industry inside and out, we will improve your books, we'll have such accuracy, the price can go up because the competition that doesn't know or have the level of expertise I have and you don't trust as much, they have to reduce their price. So I can dictate a higher price. So there's always a direct correlation between price and trust. And if you don't have trust, you can say, I'm going to charge $1 million. You ain't going to get it. But if that business owner sees you as life-saving and life-altering, they will pay that equivalent of $1 million.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because that's intriguing, because our experiences, because you've probably mentored quite a few, I know with Profit First and all of your master classes, plus all the books that you've written, which are fantastic, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
The factor is that if they're being price sensitive, it might not be a price issue. It might be a trust issue.
It almost always is. And we don't want to believe that. We don't want to believe that. When we hear price, Well, there's actually two things at play. When we hear someone's like, that's too expensive, that means they don't see the value in you, which is a trust issue. Because you know the value in you. It just hasn't been transferred over. They don't see it yet. Right. One of the best ways to see it is through demonstrated authority, meaning if you've done it for others. So you can speak until you're blue in the face. I'm amazing. I'm amazing. That doesn't increase the trust factor. If you say, we've done this amazing work for this person and that, every time you're increasing the trust factor, it increases price. But also price is, the other component that affects price is commoditization. If you are seen as the same as everyone else, that reduces price. So no matter how trustworthy you are, if you're just another gumball out of the gumball machine, I'm still only going to put a penny in there. It doesn't matter because all gumballs are the same. So we have a second responsibility, and it's to show differentiation. I'll give you a simple strategy you can do as a marketing technique is break the label. When I meet with an accountant or bookkeeper, one of my questions when we're working on marketing strategy, I'll say, how do you position yourself? What do you tell people you are? What do you do? And they say, well, I tell them I'm an accountant or a bookkeeper. And I respond saying, that's the worst thing you can say, because to the consumer, when I hear the word accountant, a picture flashes in my mind. I got that visor, I got the glasses and the calculator. When I hear bookkeeper, I got pencils writing, clicking and clacking. I can see the picture. And if I can see the picture, that means I've commoditized you because I believe subconsciously that all bookkeepers and accountants are the same. You're in for the fight. But when one of our members comes out and says, I'm a profit advisor, what's that? I have skills in accounting and bookkeeping like anyone else. So they're actually talking about the commodity term, accountant and bookkeeper, and saying, yeah, of course I can do that because it's a commodity in the consumer's eyes. And then they say, but what I specialize in is I have specific tools and strategies to elevate your profit to highest level. That's what profit advisors do. The lesson here is come up with a unique label that defines you, that breaks the commoditized terms. Don't lead with accounting or bookkeeping. Yes, that's what you do, but what is the distinguishing label we can use? And that will increase your perceived value because you're not commoditized.
That's interesting, Mike. You brought a story in mind that I heard this from somewhere else where a professional accountant went and goes to a new prospect. And basically the way he approaches it, and this is, I'm paraphrasing because I've heard it from another speaker, is that when you work with us, you're going to be paying more taxes. There's no way around it.
Yeah, you're right. It's a flash, right? It's like, oh my God. Yeah.
Pay more taxes. And the reality is, if you have to pay more taxes, that means they're making you a lot more money, right? Yeah. So it's interesting how he did that, but he made the person think. And once he realized, once the flashlight went into, because the other part I always like is you make the customer get the idea, not you telling them what the idea is, right?
That's exactly right. Because when people,
when they make it themselves. So I thought that was clever. And I like your profit first. I'm a profit consultant.
Profit advisor, profit consultant. I mean, use a term that uniquely distinguishes you and is a legit available term. Like, don't use a trademark term,
True.
But use something that distinguishes you in that space. So we have an organization of Fix This Next advisors. We call them FTNers or fixers. So someone come in and say, oh, I'm a fixer. That's way different than I'm a business coach. So we use that unique term and they can distinguish themselves. Now you still have to explain it. You got to backfill it with an explanation. Just like you're going to pay more taxes. Well, that's a little bit shocking, which means you're going to be more wealthy. You're going to have the money reserved for taxes. You're going to be more intelligent about your numbers than ever before. Wow. What a great differentiator and reframe.
Yeah, that was cool. When I heard it,
I love it.
It was like, it's amazing if these were accountants and bookkeepers that are coming up with these ideas. So we have to let all of our guests out there or all of our seers is you are creative. You can do this.
Totally.
So
I think it starts off by ask for referrals. Everyone has a website that looks generically the same. Okay, that's probably the stuff that we shouldn't do because from the consumer's perception, if you see more of the same, it's more of the same commodity. So let's avoid those tactics, and that starts spawning, well, what are alternative tactics? And that's where you differentiate.
Okay, so now we've talked about all these different things. The problem is, shouldn't the professional carve out some time for this, or can they do it in like 2 minutes? Like, what should they do with all the stuff we just talked about? Now, it's not things that it's in plain sight.
So I'll say yes and yes. Yes to carving out time. Yes, you can do in 2 minutes. And I think both are necessary. Right. I think if we say, half a day every Friday is my marketing day, I think we're going to pull off about 1 or 2 days before we fade out and we get back to work. Okay. I think we do need to dedicate a block of time for ideation. But then once we have this and say, you know what? Of all these things I heard on Louis' podcast, I think I'm going to go for that vendor network. I'm going to ask my clients about the vendor network. Then let's break it into the 2-minute actions. What's the smallest thing you can do 2 minutes? Maybe it's just contact one customer and ask them to tell you their list of vendors. Or maybe you don't even have to do that because you're a bookkeeper. You can go into their accounting system and say, who are all their vendors? And then the next 2 minutes, which is maybe the next day, is call your client and say, hey, I saw this one vendor your IT person, do you mind if I call them? Because I want to see if I can serve you better by understanding the technology they're implementing. You get the yes. Next day, next 2 minutes is, can we have a call? And it's these micro steps that causes momentum. I find a great failure rate when we say, this is the new me, and then we have to stick with it in big chunks. It's almost too hard.
You hit my diet plan and my exercise plan right on the. I always try to
Small
take big chunks rather than the micro ones. I think if I applied the micro, I think would be great. And it makes sense for business too, because you're absolutely right. Our days get filled up. If we try to do a half a day anywhere consistently, that's
it's too much. I think there's a reason why Atomic Habits is so successful, that book. It's all about micro shift that brings about a nuclear impact, magnificent change by doing these micro movements consistently.
I like the title Atomic because an atomic bomb is based on the smallest molecule.
Right? And how much energy is released. Yeah, it's a great title. It's great.
Well, Mike, I really enjoyed this conversation. I think we've covered a lot of
good
stuff. I'm going to call this marketing in plain sight, because what we talked about is everything right now that what's right in front of you. So, Mike, if they want to get a hold of you, or if they want to know more about you or what you're doing, how can they connect with you?
Well, maybe this is consistent with the theme. I'll give you a cool marketing hack. The website to go to is Mike Motorbike. Now, that's a little different because Mike Michalowicz is my name. No one can spell it. So make your marketing accessible. So Mike Motorbike, like a motorcycle. And plus, there's some fun stuff when you get there. Sure. When you go to MikeMotorbike.com, all my books are available for free download, chapters from the books. I used to write for the Wall Street Journal. You can get those articles. And I also have a podcast. So MikeMotorbike.com.
I like that.
Thank you.
That's great. And by the way, Mike Michalowicz is a difficult name. But
it's a doozy.
Once you get used to it, it's a piece of cake.
Well, yeah, once you, right, like anything else, once you get it, it's like, oh, Michalowicz ain't too bad.
Yeah, not bad at all. Well, thank you so much, Mike. I really enjoyed today, and I hope our viewers enjoyed it. Well, Mike, thanks for being on our show. If you guys like their show, please subscribe. And until next time, stay hydrated and be well. Bye for now.